Welcome to another jam-packed episode of the Sports Card Nation podcast, the show that brings you all the important news from the sports card hobby. We'll have some debates, opinions, new release schedules, and info. Plus, we'll also discuss the sports that so directly affect the hobby we all love. We'll mix in an occasional gambling tip or two, throw in some life stuff, and bring you great guest interviews from the hobby and sports dignitaries. And if you're good listeners, we may even give away a few things now and then. Now, here's the guy who wanted the cards and not the gum, John Newman.
All right, welcome. Episode 11. Glad to have you with us, as always. Back for another one. It's Friday. But before we get into the meat of the show, and I know I don't do this all the time, I just want to talk a little bit about something going on in the country with the winter weather and those sub-zero temperatures affecting the Midwest and here in the Northeast where I am. I've been fortunate. It's been a little bit north of here, but still very cold, some winter weather. For those in the heart of these areas, be safe, help your fellow neighbor out. Little things, according to weather reports, things are supposed to break in the next few days and whatnot. So stay safe, be safe, help out your fellow man, and get through this tough winter weather. Okay, on to some more lighthearted stuff, being the show. Episode 11. I know I probably say this every week, but going to have a great episode today. Someone I really admire, someone who's been sort of an inspiration when it comes to sports card podcasting, will be our guest this week. That's Eric Norton from Beckett and the Fat Packs podcast. And I coined him. I don't know if he's ever been coined anything before, but I'm coining him the godfather of the sports card podcasting genre. When I went to start listening to sports card podcasts years ago, he was the first one to pop up. But just being the first one to pop up doesn't make you necessarily good or great. But the fact is, he's one of the best in the industry. Passion for what he does, it comes through on the airwaves and in person. And he's just a great, he's a great guy, and it really starts there. So it was a pleasure to have him on. We're going to talk a little bit about Beckett, about eBay, about the evolution of pricing, where pricing has started from and where it is now in the current scheme of the hobby. So we're going to talk about a lot of things. We're also going to talk a little bit. He's a person of faith, as I am, and even that's going to come up. There's nothing we did that was off limits. So I appreciate Eric being on. I hope you enjoyed the interview as much as I enjoyed doing it with him. Another big segment of the show, we're going to talk about 2018 football. To me, this rookie class is the best ever. Yep, you heard me right. The best ever in the hobby. I think a lot of people don't realize it. It's just, I'm going to mention 44 names on both sides of the ball on the show that are going to be, or have the potential to be, I should say, impact players. Some already are, obviously, with many making the Pro Bowl. This class, I said it even before the season started, this class had all the makings to be one of the best ones in the hobby, if not ever, in a long time. And we're gonna talk about some of these 44 guys that I'm gonna mention. I'm gonna give you my Super Bowl breakdown, who will win, why, what to look for, and that sort of thing. Buckle up that chin strap and let's go. We love hearing from our listeners. Without you, there is no us. We encourage your thoughts and feedback, and we do care about what you think. We encourage you to reach out to us at any of our social media accounts, and they are as follows. You can get a hold of us on Instagram at Sports Card Nation Podcast. That's all one word, Sports Card Nation Podcast. Or our Twitter, which is at Sports Card Natty1, Sports Card NATI1. Or if you go to Facebook, you can search Sports Card Nation Podcast. That's 4 words, and you'll find us. Or you can email the show at sportscardnationpc@gmail.com. Also, please give us a follow. We really do appreciate that. Thank you. right, it's time for What's Crackin'. All right, let's start off with the hobby release calendar. Very, very brief. Not a lot coming out this week. But on February 6th, Panini won football. I am interested to see how that product does and what it looks like live. For those that don't know, basically it's the Topps Dynasty version for football made by Panini. One card, all supposed to be really nice patches, patch autos. So I'm curious how that product looks and how it does once it goes live. The other product releasing also on February 6th is the 2019 Donruss Racing. And that's really it for this week. Topps 2019 baseball is out. It's live. Early returns look pretty promising. I have an interesting story pertaining to myself there. I won't mention the company. I pre-ordered a bunch of wax ahead of time with, something I usually don't do a ton, but I wanted to do that to stay away from retail more than I did last year. So I pre-ordered 2019 Topps, 2019 Heritage, some Inception, another product I actually forgot what it was. Pretty decent bill. I pre-ordered it, and I thought that as each product was being released that I would get that shipment to my door. And Topps Day came the other day, and I noticed I didn't have a package or a shipping notice that it was shipped. So I contacted said distributor and pretty much asked, where's the Topps 2019 that I ordered? And I basically was told, per their policy, that because everything on my order was a pre-order, that everything would ship when the last released part of my pre-order was released, which is Inception on March 20th. So they were going to ship me the Topps 2019, the Heritage, and the Inception on March 20th when Inception came out. And I was not under that assumption whatsoever, so I wound up canceling the order. So I'm in the market I'm definitely going to get some 2019 Topps. I'll just have to go elsewhere. I thought the policy was kind of odd. Who's going to order all that stuff and wait till the last item is actually released before they expect to get it? And it would have been nice if they maybe sent an email or a phone call to say, hey, you know that we're not shipping this Topps until Inception comes out on March 20th, just so you know. But no such luck. They did, even their response to me was a little terse, it's in our policy, you should have read it. That being the case, even though whether it's in their policy or not, a little better communication with that kind of order and that size order would have been nice. In all fairness, I'm not going to mention them. They didn't do anything technically bad or wrong, but it just would have been better if there would have been more communication there. So I'm in the market for some 2019 Topps. I'll be on the hunt probably in the next couple of days to replace that portion of my order as well as the other pre-order. And I know now when I pre-order, I guess I'll read the fine print. So let's talk about now that the season is over, minus the Super Bowl here, let's talk about the 2018 NFL rookie class this year. I believe it to be the best ever. Yep, I said it. I'll say it again. I think it's the best rookie crop the hobby has ever seen up until this point. I've got 44 names on my list here in front of me. 5 of these guys are rookie Pro Bowlers. That's a high number. These 44 names I have are play on both sides of the ball. And when I compiled this list, I made a point. I wanted to include anyone I thought were either Pro Bowlers or the potential to be Pro Bowlers or viable players that are going to have hobby love, that their cards are going to be viable and in demand. And I came up with 44 names. I probably even missed a few. If you felt I missed a few. By all means, let us know via our social medias, email, Twitter, Instagram, what have you. Text the show. But I have 44 names. I'm going to go through them now. I'm going to talk a little bit, just real briefly, on most of them, and then a little bit more on some others. Let's start on the offensive side of the ball with the quarterback class, which I think is, again, very good. And I think when you look at the 2019 quarterback class, which I think is not a great year. So I think 2018 is going to be a decent quarterback class. I think it's headlined by Baker Mayfield, a Pro Bowl alternate. And he set a rookie record. I didn't really realize this until he did it. The most touchdowns by a rookie thrown, 27. He had 27 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, 3,725 yards. For a rookie, that's impressive. He's re-energized the Browns franchise. I think they've got their quarterback after many, many swings and misses. I think they found their guy. This is a guy who also led 3 comeback victories and 4 game-winning drives as a rookie. Keep that in mind. All the stuff he did this year as a rookie. I told friends and fellow sports fans of mine, this was before the podcast, that to me he was the best quarterback in this draft. He wasn't really ranked as such, but the Browns picked him number 1, and apparently, the Browns scouting staff did their due diligence, because I think this guy is the real deal. Staying with that quarterback class, Sam Darnold, I don't think he's going to be great. I think he's going to be a serviceable starter. Josh Allen with the Bills, I think, like the Browns, the Bills may have found their quarterback of the future as well. What worries me with Josh Allen's style of play, he's reckless, he's fearless. This is a guy that won't slide, will fight for 3 more yards, dive, fly through the air, and I just worry about serious injuries with Josh Allen. But if this young man can stay healthy, he has a promising future. I know in the card hobby, he's already getting a lot of love, and deservedly so. I'll close out with 2 quarterbacks that I'm not high on, and one might surprise some because he's in the hobby. He's a fan favorite, but I'll save him for last. The next guy I want to talk about is Josh Rosen of the Cardinals. I think, there always has to be a quarterback that's highly rated that just doesn't pan out. I think Josh Rosen is that guy. I think when everything's said and done, his career is not going to be very buzzworthy. So there's already even talk that Cliff Kingsbury, the new coach, is not really enamored with him and would consider taking Kyler Murray at number 1, and that they would trade Josh Rosen. So I think he's going to be kind of in the doghouse before he even gets a fresh start with the new coach. I don't think his skill set translated over to the NFL level, and everyone can't be a Baker Mayfield, and I don't think Josh Rosen is. Lamar Jackson, I know he's a hobby favorite and sells real well. I just, as a football guy, he's a running quarterback more than a quarterback. He has an under 60% completion rate. I've watched him quite a bit, being a Steeler fan and in that division, and he just doesn't. He's a little sloppy with the ball. He's got a little fumbleitis, and he has pretty much almost more TDs running the ball than throwing it. So I think, teams had never seen him yet. I think coming back here in his second year, teams are going to game plan for him, adjust for him. I kind of see a down year and maybe a down career unless he really gets into the off-season workouts and works with some of his quarterback coaches and works on his delivery, his mechanics, and his accuracy. He's not an accurate throwing quarterback. So if he's going to be a long-term success, he's going to have to clean up some things I'm not betting that happens. So I think Baker Mayfield is tops in this class. Let's go to running back. The guy I really like is Sony Michel. Didn't even start the beginning of the year, 931 yards, 6 touchdowns. The thing that makes me nervous with Sony is we all know Bill Belichick's handling of running backs. He kind of feels like they're all system and he can plug anyone in there and make them very good players. So I almost wish Sony was with another team that would, I don't want to say utilize him more, but probably cherish him a little bit more. I hope he, Bill Belichick doesn't ruin him, so to speak. I don't think that's going to happen in this case. I think even Belichick, who thinks running backs are a dime a dozen, knows he's got a stud in Sony. So I think he's a safe bet in the hobby. His stuff's already going up based on his AFC Championship game performance. Saquon, what do you need to say? This guy is the real deal. I think he's the best player, period. Not running back, the best player from this draft class. His numbers are, for a rookie, are astonishing. 1,300 yards on the ground, 11 touchdowns, 91 receptions for another 721 yards, and 4 more TDs. So combined, he has over 2,000 yards, 91 receptions on top of all the carries, and 15 touchdowns. He's obviously a Pro Bowler, and barring injury, this man's going to be a Pro Bowler every year, and the kind of player you build a team around. He's already the face of the Giants. Eli's already being looked to be replaced to help Saquon with a younger, more versatile quarterback. And Saquon Barkley, 10, 15 years from now is going to be the hobby darling of this draft class, and his stuff, like I said, barring injury, is going to be at a premium. It already is. Nick Chubb, again, Cleveland hit again with the selection of Chubb. 904 yards short of 1,000 at 996. Found the end zone 8 times. And again, I think Cleveland feels so strongly about him, they traded Carlos Hyde for a 6-pack of soda. So they believe in Chubb. I do too. I think he's the real deal. Let's talk about some of the other guys in the running back class. Ronnie Jones, this is a heralded prospect out of USC, but he didn't pan out this year because he was rumored not to be the brightest guy in the bunch, had trouble with the playbook, couldn't get on the field because of it. I wouldn't cast him off yet. I think he works on some things. He still may be a force in the hobby, but time will tell there. A guy people forget about is the Redskins pick of Darius Geis from LSU. I think he's going to be a solid running back if he can recover from an ACL injury, which is obviously, as we all know, are serious. But a lot of people, because he never played this year, probably all forgot about him already. Another guy who didn't play well in limited touches, Rashad Penny from the Seattle Seahawks. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Chris Carson carried the load most of the year, and I'm reading reports that they really do like Chris Carson. So Rashad may need to do it elsewhere. I still think he's a talented back that could be player in this league, but I don't know if it might happen in Seattle. Another Pro Bowler in this running back class, Philip Lindsay from the Broncos, a basically undrafted hometown free agent. Rags to riches story, basically, makes the Pro Bowl as a free agent running back. I'm going to be one of the few that are not huge long-term fans of Philip Lindsay. I think it's a great story. You root for stories like this, but I just feel like I don't see him sustaining the kind of performance he put up this year long-term. Another guy on the same team who might have to go elsewhere to make a name for himself is Royce Freeman, but I do like him. I just hope he gets a chance to carry the rock. It's probably going to have to be somewhere other than Denver. Kerryon Johnson was doing very well in Detroit before he went down with an injury. I think Detroit likes him. I think they finally found a back they feel can carry the workload in Johnson, so we'll see next year how he recovers from his injury. A guy from my team, Jalen Samuels, almost didn't make the team out of camp, came in for James Conner when he went down and proved that he can be an NFL back in this league. It'll be interesting to see how he's utilized next year, but I like what I see from him. He can also catch the ball out of the backfield, and his running backs coach is the new running backs coach for the Steelers, so that can only help him. Kalen Ballage in Miami, another guy we'll have to wait and see. Miami's rumored to be going after Le'Veon Bell. So what that tells me a little bit is they're not in love with Kalen or Kenyon Drake or anyone else maybe that they already have on the roster. I like what I saw from Ballage in limited action, but we'll see how that obviously plays out. And the guy in Atlanta, Ito Smith, is probably going to steal Devonta Freeman's job eventually, if not sooner. So I think he's going to eventually start in Atlanta. I don't think he's going to be great, but I think he's going to be a solid running back in the league. Receivers, this list is long. We'll start with, in no particular order, I'm just going to go in the order I wrote them down. Traquan Smith in New Orleans, speedy, tall, lanky, kind of faded late in the year, had played real well in the middle of the season, a little bit of a late season fade. They've got like 5 or 6 guys they utilize, so I have faith in him. I've been buying a lot of his cards up and kind of stocking them away. I think long term he's going to be a solid receiver in the league. Anthony Miller, this guy to me is one of the real deal receivers. He also faded late in the year for the Bears, but I do like the intangibles he brings. He comes out of Memphis. He wound up with 33 catches for 423 yards and 7 touchdowns. He's got great hands. I think he's going to be the future number 1 of the Bears. We just might have to wait a little bit until that finally occurs. The guy I really like, another guy I've been buying a lot of his stuff of, is Calvin Ridley of the Falcons. I think if it wasn't for Julio Jones, this guy would be the number 1 already. And think about what he put up. 64 catches, 821 yards, and double-digit TDs with 10 as a rookie. And that's with Julio Jones getting his numbers. So I think Calvin Ridley's the future number 1 and is close to it right now. And he's a guy that's you can get in the card market. His stuff to me is undervalued, underpriced. I know I bought quite a bit of his stuff, and I'm just put it away in my box and wait till this guy takes the hobby by storm. Michael Gallup from the Cowboys, they're looking for a receiver. Before they went out and got Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper came along, and Michael Gallup actually started to play better. So maybe that opposing solid wide receiver on the other side opened up some things in the passing game for him. The other guy I put there right with Calvin Ridley and Anthony Miller, DJ Moore from the Carolina Panthers. Another solid rookie performance. 55 catches, 788 yards, a couple touchdowns. I think he's going to be the number 1 in Carolina. We'll have Drew Herndon on next week, and he's going to. I'll definitely talk to him. That's his team, right in pretty much his backyard. We'll talk a little bit of DJ Moore. But he's another guy I've been buying up because his stuff is very affordable and too cheap, if you ask me. So I've been buying his stuff. I think he's a solid number 1 perennial Pro Bowler in the NFL. Cortland Sutton from the Broncos had a pretty good season. James Washington from my Steelers struggled early on. Kind of came on a little bit late. Seems a little gun shy, but all the tools are there. I think with a little more experience, he'll be fine. Christian Kirk from Arizona, a guy I do like. I just worry about his quarterback situation. He doesn't really have a great one, and I think we all know a receiver without a great quarterback, it's tough to really excel. So we'll see what Arizona does, and if Arizona can get him a gunslinger that can get him the ball. I think he has all the talent in the world. He could be in the same class as Ridley and DJ Moore, but I think he's hurting in the quarterback department. So we'll see how that plays out. DJ Chark from Jacksonville, same thing with Kirk. Really bad quarterback situation, but the tool set is there. Another guy that came on late that's played real well, Kiki Kute from the Houston Texans. He's a future big target and target favorite of Deshaun Watson. I like him. I don't think he's going to be a number one type receiver, but he's going to be a solid 2. And with a name like Kiki, I think he's going to get some hobby love as well. Dante Pettis with the 49ers. He's a very good player. I think his performance suffered when Jimmy G went down with injury, but a healthy Jimmy G is going to make Dante Pettis a solid player. Deshaun Hamilton, also in the Broncos. He has all the skill sets out of Penn State. We'll see how that quarterback situation plays out. Right now it's Case Keenum. I think Case Keenum's a bridge to what John Elway hopes is probably a younger, more viable starter. So we'll see how that affects Hamilton and Sutton. Antonio Callaway in Cleveland didn't do really great, but he's still young. He's got the intangibles. He has some off-the-field issues. I think if Antonio Callaway never pans out, it'll be kind of a Josh Gordon type of deal. Just off-the-field stuff could never get right. But if he can steer clear of some trouble, keep his head on his shoulders, Antonio Callaway might surprise some people. And lastly but not least, in Green Bay, you got Marcus Valdes-Scantling. Also didn't have a great year, but the intangibles are there. We'll see how that pans out, as well as you know, the Packers receivers are on the older side of the NFL. So let's go to tight ends. Let's do tight ends. There's 3 that I wrote down. Ian Thomas had a great year for the Panthers. Dallas Goedert for the Eagles. And Mike Gesicki for Miami. And he started out poorly. Couldn't even get on the field. But late in the season, he started showing some of that promise that he showed at Penn State. So we'll see how all 3 of those guys progress from the tight end position. Tight ends, as we all know, when it comes to cards and the hobby, don't get a lot of love. You can really name the few that do. I mean, Gronk comes to mind, Tony Gonzalez, Travis Kelce a little bit, Greg Olsen very little, but it's not a glamour position. So we'll see. Let's go to the defensive side of the ball. 3 Pro Bowlers make up this list. We'll start off with Leighton Vander Esch from the Cowboys. Pro Bowler, had a big year, kind of snuck up on people. 140 combined tackles, 2 picks. He's a coverage type linebacker. He reminds me kind of a Luke Kuechly type player, but he looks like he's going to be the real deal. Looks like Dallas hit on that one. I know his stuff right now is actually doing really well card-wise. If you check eBay, his stuff is, especially some of the numbered and colored items are bringing pretty good buck. So we'll see how that goes. Another unheralded guy that made a name for himself is Darius Leonard from Indianapolis. He had a great year. Roquan Smith, who I think is really like Barkley to running backs. I think Roquan Smith is the face of the defensive class this year. He had a real solid year with 121 combined tackles, 5 sacks, and 1 interception. And he wasn't on the field as much as I think he will be in the future. So expect those numbers to go up. I see him as a perennial Pro Bowler once he gets established, which I think will happen sooner than later. I think he's the real deal. I think he's that next hot linebacker that takes the hobby by storm. And Avonte Maddox from the Eagles, solid corner. Derwin James, Pro Bowl safety from the LA Chargers. I almost said San Diego, but I caught myself. And he had a great year as well. 105 tackles, Combined 3.5 sacks and 3 picks. He's all over the field. When you look at those numbers from the safety position, 105 tackles, almost 4 sacks, and 3 picks. That just screams of a guy that just has a nose for the ball and is all over the field making plays. So he's a solid ball player. Denzel Ward, another corner out of Cleveland. Cleveland really nailed their draft, as you can see. Proof is in how well they played on the field. Denzel Ward, 53 tackles, 3 picks. He's a guy that I think is going to improve as he gets older in his career. They got Steve Wilkes to work with him, a former Arizona coach. So I think Denzel Ward is going to step his game up even further and be a big hobby factor from the corner position. Bradley Chubb in Denver didn't have a superb year, but has all the intangibles to be a great edge rusher, and also another edge rusher that didn't have a great year, but the future is bright, is Marcus Davenport from the Saints. And one guy, we don't give offensive linemen much love, but I am gonna hear. He comes from Notre Dame. The Colts picked him. Quentin Nelson really shined from the offensive line position and was a key catalyst into the bounce back year that Andrew Luck had. So this guy is going to be probably a perennial Pro Bowler from the offensive line position. Now we all know no one's clamoring and going out and buying offensive lineman cards, but I think the comparison I'll make with Quentin Nelson, I see him as kind of a Joe Thomas. Perennial All-Pro, good guy, puts his head down, gets to work, and Joe Thomas does have some hobby love. And now in today's day and age, they make more cards of offensive linemen than they have in the past. So I expect to see Quentin Nelson get some hobby love. But there's 44 names. I'll be honest with you, I'm sure I missed somebody. I tried not to, but we probably could have went longer with this list. When I made this list, folks, I just tried to pick out players that I think long term are going to have success in the league, which obviously is going to translate onto the cardboard side of things. And when you look at this list, unless I'm wrong, every one of these gentlemen appear in the Panini Contenders, which we all know is kind of the football product. So they didn't really miss anybody here. And so when these guys become the Pro Bowlers that they potentially can be, those Contenders cards are going to be the go-to card. I think this class is the best ever, in my opinion. I'm curious, do you agree, disagree? Let me know who I forgot, who I left off the list, who I snubbed. We're going to have, like I said, Drew Herndon on next week, and we can kind of rebroach this subject and get his 2 cents on this as well. So 2018 NFL rookies, best ever. All right, now joining us on the Sports Card Nation podcast guest line, the gentleman I'm about to bring on is someone I admire. I give a lot of credit to even before this. He's, to me, the godfather of the genre. When I was looking for a sports card podcast, when I was already kind of listening to podcasts, Fat Packs podcast was the first one that came up. I listened. I was hooked. The rest is history. This man is the host of that show. Like I said, I don't even probably need to say his name. I will. He's Eric Norton. He's agreed to come on, and we're going to, I talked a little bit about eBay and the pricing and the evolution. We're going to talk a little bit about that, and I'm sure some other things as well. So, Eric, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, man, I really appreciate it, John. Thanks for the invite. Thanks for reaching out, and I'm happy to be a part of the show. Love what you're doing with it, and I know you're only 9, 10 episodes in, so this is really great. You're doing a good job.
Oh, coming from you, I'm flattered. I'm probably going to save that and listen to it every night before I go to sleep. But yeah, we're on episode 11, and if you listen to the first one, and as we've went through each one, we've kind of improved on some things, sound quality and whatnot. Hopefully that continues to obviously move in that direction. So, but like I said, I've been involved in sports cards since I'm old, so 1979 as a 7-year-old kid, and then more into the business end in the late 80s. And, podcasts kind of became a thing in 2004. I was not in at that stage, but later on, I was mostly a lot of sports podcasts, because obviously being a sports fan. And then I kind of just did a search, is there any kind of sports card hobby podcast? And then Fat Packs came up. I said, let's check this out. And like I just said, the rest is history. So, I give a little compliment back to the way let's, be real. I think everyone that does sports card podcasts, if they didn't say they took something from Fat Packs, they'd probably not be being very truthful and honest. So I'll tell you, they say copycat's the sincerest form of flattery. So I do, I've tried to take something from everything, put my own little fresh spin on it as well. But being one of the first ones, you set the bar real high. So it's going to be a tough act to follow, as they say. But I'm still a listener, so that's fine by me. So.
Again, thank you very much. It's a real privilege and an honor to hear you say that, man. And like you mentioned, there's probably a good handful of other podcasts out there that cover sports card shows, and we all bring something a little different to the table each time that we're on. So it's good that in such a niche hobby that there's enough options out there. There's a little something for everybody.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you. There's 4 or 5, including yours, obviously, that I do listen to on the regular. So, if you're in sports, into the hobby, they're all interesting in their own right if done well. So, like you said, I think there's room, for everybody. I listen to 4 or 5. I'm sure you probably similar, if not the same. So,
the thing is, where I think that sometimes we would butt heads is running the same content, because if it's say on your show you want to talk about the Super Bowl, or optic football or whatever, and there's big news around it, we're all going to be presenting it. We're all going to be presenting that news because we should be. So the key is to find a little something different each time, as it's talked about, and I think we all do good jobs of that. So it's a compliment coming from you, but again, there's great shows out there that everybody can enjoy.
Yep, no doubt, and I hope people feel the same about both of us. So on the last show, on the what I call the eBay episode, eBay, I had a store myself for 4 years, from 92 to 96. Did pretty good with it. I was a younger man, 20 years old. But I said on the episode, being in the store at that age, I kind of missed out on a lot of stuff. Friends would say, hey, man, we're going here. And I'd be like, nah, I got to be at the store. I got to open the store. And then people were coming in, hey, can you do this? Because I can get it on eBay for that. And I was like, what's eBay? This is obviously in its infancy stages. And, it's a new online auction, and so in a sense I had to compete with this new kid in town. And, at first I'm like, well, this kind of rough. What's this about? And then as I got looking into it, I realized like I had to, if I was going to stay open as a store, kind of compete with this new fledgling enterprise at the time. But at the same time, I put some stuff on there and then realized, like, other than a few listing fees and, you pay when your item sells and that sort of thing, I said, man, I can kind of like do that, maybe not be locked into the store. And that's kind of what I did. I had a partner at the time, and then I kind of told him I was thinking about maybe, not doing the store. Would he be interested in kind of buying my half out? We sat down and, we worked that out, and I kind of got out of the store and, did a lot of eBays. I was touring the Northeast with shows in Philly, Pennsylvania area, Ohio. And, I got into the evolution of price guides. The first one I remember was, well, I don't know if I know I'm older than you, Eric, but I don't know if you remember one. It was called SCP. It was literally just a little paperback thing, and it came out monthly. And, obviously there was a lot less sets, so the thing was only really 25, 30 pages long. Just had, your Topps, your Fleer, your Donruss, from the vintage to the current year, which was like 80-something. And then, they were the kind of the big thing. And then came, SCD, which to me was a lot more ads and kind of ad-based. And then Tough Stuff, which I actually wound up being a contributing writer for about a year and a half myself. Kind of came along. And then Beckett came along. And I'm not just saying this because you're on the show, but that became the definitive price guide. If you wanted to know what anything was worth or going for, that was it, And then as eBay kind of grew, and whatnot, that's where all these eBay comps come in, kind of like we know today. And I have a hard time finding a Beckett magazine in the stores like I used to. But I know I talked to you offline, and you said that 2018 was your Beckett's biggest year revenue-wise, even still. Because I know you have the online price guide subscriptions and whatnot. So I know I just talked there for I don't know how many minutes, but I wanted your kind of take on kind of what I just said and being, directly involved with Beckett, obviously.
Sure. The evolution of pricing is interesting. I've watched it from the outside. I've been at Beckett for 4 years, almost 5 now. And things have even changed in the 5 years that I've been there. Let's just skip all the way ahead to what eBay has done. So everybody says, and we working at Beckett, we hear it all the time. Beckett's irrelevant. Beckett's dead because if you want to know the price of a card, all you got to do is go look at eBay comps, and that'll tell you the price of the card. And I get that. That's true to some extent. I believe that. However, the thing to remember about what we do in the pricing department is that we give you a range. So on a really good day, X card will sell for this amount, and on a bad day it'll sell for this amount. So you might see a price listing between $15 and $40. That's because whatever X card is sold between that price range. Now, being the smart buyer, you want to buy it on the lower end so you can try to sell it for the higher end, right?
Yeah,
we get that. But but giving you an exact price is just not something that we've ever been in the business of doing. We give you the ranges there to help you as the collector understand what it sells for, and a smart time to buy, or a smart time to buy is when it's at the lower end. So hopefully you can turn and flip it for the higher end. Now there's a lot that goes into that. There's one, scarcity. I personally don't think odds mean anything anymore. You can see a card that has odds of 1 in 90,000, but if it's a hot player, it might mean something. But if it's just your common insert guy, I don't think it means anything. And the market will play that out. Cards that are numbered to like 25 or say, it's the same kind of thing. They just, unless it's a really hot player, it's not really going to matter. And with that being said, we still try to do our best in the pricing department to give it that range so you can know what to look for. My boss, his name is Brian Fleischer, and he did a great job a couple of weeks ago. He wrote a piece that landed on Beckett.com to help the novice, or maybe even the more experienced Beckett reader, one, understand the price range, and two, understand the up and down arrows. Those are two key things that people kind of pass over when they're looking at a Beckett magazine, but they're important for them to know. So I would highly encourage everybody to go check out Beckett.com and look for that piece. It's right there in the news section. You can find it.
Yeah, great point. Yeah, and that's the thing too, Eric, with eBay comps. I think I understand, and you even said yourself, there's sort of a necessity evil. I hate to use that word, but they also, you know, a lot of people when buying, like you said, we're all trying to get the best deal we can for a buck, and I get that. That's just being a smart consumer. But there's, you know, people always try to abuse that as well when they use those. You know,
Right.
they go to 2012 and pull up a Mike Trout comp from 2012 and say, hey, it went for this. Well, yeah. 6 years ago. I always, if from my business side, if I get something like that, I said this, I think, on the last show, I rather than get kind of mad, I try to approach that with a sense of humor. So I usually send them a picture back of the DeLorean with Michael J. Fox and from Back to the Future, and I say, get in and let's go get some. And so I did. That's a way of just, instead of responding in a real negative fashion, just an attempt at humor. And it's really saying, listen, we're talking 6 years ago in that case, and so comps, aren't the end all be all either. So some of these auctions end at all sorts of different times of night. Maybe they don't have as many views, or they end when less people are in on it.
My favorite one of those, and I'm sorry to interject myself here.
Go ahead.
My favorite one is Mike Trout's probably not a great example, but say someone spells Mike Trout's name wrong, and there's a comp on a Mike Trout card for a third of what it should be, and then someone wants to use that. Well, that's just the dealer's issue because he didn't spell the name correctly. I've been associated with that once or twice. When I was younger, I was not the greatest speller, and I've spelled many a listing names wrong, and I've lost money on them. But those guys will try to pick you apart on those. So that's another example of just when someone's trying to be savvy, you got to really know what you're looking at.
Yeah. Yeah, and now even, this is going off in a hole, but a lot of these replica and fake cards, for lack of a better term, and even in the descriptions, they're so vague with it that I can tell, being involved this long, I'm sure you as well, but someone else that maybe not as experienced can kind of be reeled in there, and then they're getting a card in the mail that's not a licensed card, and that, I feel bad. I'm surprised there really hasn't been more done, with that. But they're still on there. I see them. I'm sure you do as well.
Yeah, eBay does a pretty good job of catching those, but there are savvy dealers out there who will word it just right, and someone might get caught with it. It's unfortunate, but it happens.
Yeah, and it happens in a lot of line of businesses and other industries, I'm sure too. So I know you're a busy man with Beckett, with the show. I know you do the pricing. Do you do just the hockey, Eric? I put you on the spot, or have you kind of went into other?
It's just the hockey. So our department, there's 6 guys or 7 guys who we each are dedicated to a sport, and then there's some filler there with like non-sports and like racing and golf and stuff like that. We'll chip in, but each sport has a dedicated person.
Yeah.
It's with pricing. Another complaint we hear a lot is 2001 such and such product isn't priced, or it's off value. And to be quite open and honest with you, it probably is, because there's 6 or 7 of us, and we have to stay on top of what's current in the market, where the most price changes are going on. So when people say that Beckett is outdated and they're looking at the magazine, the truth is it's probably outdated, but it's because you're looking at the magazine. I'm going to sound like a salesman here, but if you go to the online price guide, it's much more current. It's much more current, and you will find a lot more in the online price guide than you will in the magazine, because we have a limited number of pages that we can print on. With the online price guide, all you got to do is search the player's name and card number, and you can find it much easier with stuff that parallels that don't make the magazine, some insert sets that don't make the magazine. In cases, some sets that are just way too big to be. They take up way too much space. Yeah, you're not going to find in the magazine. You can find in the online price guide.
Well, it's crazy. I know I'm preaching to the choir here. Just there's 20, 30 products from each company in just that one sport. Is it? I've got to think, being a price guide analyst, a price analyst, it's sometimes probably hard just to keep up with all the releases. Sometimes there's 2 or 3 the same day getting released.
Right. Well, for example, that's a good point you brought up. So Upper Deck Trilogy Hockey came out on the 11th of January. It's 8 packs, 4 cards per pack, and there's not a ton of pricing information out there on it yet. But I've done my very best. I've got it priced aside from a few of the autograph sets. And then when I go back to the office this week, Upper Deck SP Game Use comes out. So I'm going from one product right into another product, trying to get it priced as quickly as possible to go into the next magazine.
No rest for the weary, as they say. It's
that's correct.
And even just keeping up with the pricing, if you're a collector, I mean, it's really almost impossible. And I'm not talking about breakers, but if just a regular person, it's almost impossible to open everything. I think that's one of the reason breaking has taken off in the popularity that it has. Is that factor?
Yeah.
It's other factors too, but that to me that's a huge one.
It's breaking every product is almost unheard of, I think. And if you're just a normal everyday guy at the card shop, breakers will do a good job of divvying that up. Another one is Topps Series 1 baseball comes out this coming week, and that one, with that being said, we'll see so much of Topps Series 1 baseball that you'll probably get sick of it, but it's gonna be probably 2 million cards on the database, or 2 million cards that are bought and sold over the weekend, over the coming weekend, minus Super Bowl traffic. But it's going to be so popular that we can probably price that product in like a week, because it's just so much of it out there.
Yeah, and it's funny. I said, I'm going to probably say this on the show. I always I know it's the base tops, and some people are like, I'm waiting for the more premium stuff. I always personally get a little bit amped with the new Topps baseball. It means the pitchers and catchers are reporting soon, and we're going to be getting underway. And this year, baseball is actually starting in March. So it's going to be even an even earlier start. So as a baseball fan, I when that Topps, flagship product kind of comes out, it's kind of signifies to me here, get ready, because here we go.
Yeah, it's it is almost like a rite of passage, right?
Yeah.
Top Series 1 comes out, then pitchers and catchers report, then we're right into the full swing of spring training, and the season's not far along. So for baseball fans, who grew up loving the sport and collecting cards, they know what's coming.
Yeah, and that's kind of where my approach comes from. As I know, when that Topps comes out, I know we're pretty close here. So speaking of collecting and new products and whatnot, obviously, like I said, you're busy with your own show and working with Beckett. I know you travel a lot. You're a dad like myself, so that's time consuming in its own right. Has all this kind of affected, how you collect, what you collect, how much you like on the personal? Have you kind of moved away from that? Do you still try to do some stuff?
Yeah, it has. Working in the industry it's really great. I enjoy it, but it also, I see so much of it that, to be honest with you, John, I'd rather be having a conversation about if we knew each other better, how your family's doing and everything like that. It's fun to talk sports cards and work in sports. I get it. It's a blessing to be able to do it, because there are people out there who have far harder jobs than what I do. With that being said, I was in the Army for almost a decade, and
thank you for
stationed up in Washington.
Thank you for your service.
Sir. I was stationed up in Washington, just outside of Seattle, and after I got out, I started working for the Seattle Mariners, and then my oldest son was born there in the Seattle area in 2010, and that was the year I started working with the Mariners, and Kyle Seager was a rookie then. So I bought up as much Kyle Seager as I could. I really liked the guys, and that's really what I focus on now, is just Kyle Seager cards.
Yeah.
I have a nice collection that one day my son will get. And then earlier, I guess late last year, my son looks at me and says, "Dad, who are the Seattle Pilots?" Because he likes to know about the Seattle area teams. And I told him who the Pilots were, and then there just so happened to be a baseball card show that weekend. We went and we bought almost all of the 69 Pilots from 69 Tops. So we started working on that. I think we need probably 6 or 7 more, and the Pilots team set will be complete, and he'll be happy about that. Yeah,
and that's neat. And those are the stories, you love to hear, Eric, that father, son, grandfather's, grandson type of stories. To me, that's how I got my start is under, like that. And, I had signatures for Tim Virgilio on last show, and he told the story how him and his dad collected, and that's how his interest got piqued, and it went from there. And it's kind of the same thing with me. My grandfather took me to the corner market in Brooklyn, New York, and I was a big Reggie kid growing up in New York City, and literally he bought me a pack of 79 Tops, and one of the first couple cards in the pack was a Reggie Jackson, and the rest is history, as they say. So, those are the stories. Sometimes we don't hear them enough, so hearing you say that, hits close to home, and hopefully for a lot of other people as well.
We talk about modern products a lot, and there's so much that goes into it with autographs and jerseys and patch cards and parallels and yada, yada, yada. Sometimes, and we mentioned it earlier, the Top Series 1 base, sometimes it's just great to pick up a pack of base cards and go through that and see what you get. And that's where the real fun and the joy of it is for me. And like when I was at that card show, flipping through pages of 69 Tops with my son, and I was explaining baseball history to him through 9 pocket pages, and he was really into it. I took more joy and pleasure in that than opening up a new product and having to talk about another autograph card.
Yeah, and I know, touching, kind of piggybacking off that, I know listening to the Fat Packs podcast, I think you had Bean's blog on, we were talking about burnout, and you kind of mentioned, you kind of do this for a living. Sometimes you rather just have a conversation, hey, how's the weather, how's the kids, and other things other than sports and sports cards. Now, I'm going to put you on the spot, I'm sure you have your moments where and I'm pretty sure I remember you saying on the show where, man, I really kind of want to talk about this or deal with this. How do you being in the industry, how do you deal with that? Do you have a strategy or a technique that you've learned from?
I just got to decompress, and like you were mentioning earlier with podcasts, I know like your show comes out on Fridays, I believe.
Yeah.
Don't take this personal. I don't listen to any sports podcast during the week. I catch up on them on Saturdays and Sundays when I'm at home and I have some time in my office. I'll put them on then. The rest of the week, I listen to. I'm a man of faith. I listen to some sermons, and I listen to some other podcasts that cover completely different topics. So I'm just not totally ingrained in sports and sport cards all the time.
Yeah, and anyone should be able to understand that. I also appreciate you saying that you're a person of faith as a fellow person of faith. One of the reasons I kind of got into podcasting is I have a good friend of mine. His name's Dan Tortora. He does a daily podcast, but before he did his daily, he's in the sports. He's on the sports end only, and he does a daily sports show in the mornings every day. And but before he was that, he worked for ESPN, and he'll tell you if you ever hear a show, he'll tell you he left ESPN just because he was really tired of kind of being told what he thinks, and this is what, and he kind of wanted to do his own show because he wanted to have his own opinions, and he's a very religious person. So when he was with ESPN, he would sometimes say, God bless you, and they kind of like said, don't do that, and that sort of thing. And so on his, if you hear him now, he's not over the top with it, but if you listen to him, you know he's a person's faith, and he says, I'm not gonna apologize for that. If you're not, I love you and respect you the same, but that's who I am. And so when you said that and the way I am, I it's kind of refreshing as well. So
not to take over your show here, but
no.
As a man of faith, and as a Christian, I'm more worried about you as a person than I am your collection, and that's just how it is.
Yep.
So even on the Beckett show, even on the Fat Pack show, I'll say God bless you, and I'll take the heat for it. I don't care, and it's just that's more important to me than sports cards.
Yeah, and I've said it even on this show too, Eric. If someone's not a believer, not of the faith, that's their business. I don't mean any, and just like you would probably say, I don't mean any offense. If you don't believe or whatever your denomination might be, it's just like you said, it's a caring for people, and you don't want to see if you believe, you're just kind of wishing them well, sort of thing, and whatnot. And like I said, it's refreshing that I know you do that. I do that. As long as, I guess the bottom line, as long as it's not over the top and too much, then I guess that's fine.
That's right. Hey, you mentioned Tim. I wanted to give him a shout out. I'm going to see him in a couple of weeks at the Houston TriStar show, the Houston TriStar Collector Show. He's going to be down there, and I'm looking forward to seeing him and everybody else. I hope if you can hear my voice and you're in the area, please come out and say hello. I'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, that's the TriStar show in Houston, and Tim did mention that. I kind of plugged it and brought it up, and so he mentioned he's going to be there. He's raised, since we're talking about him, when he was on the show last week, he was up to $41,000 raised for homeless and injured veterans. Like I told him on the show, I come from a military family. While I didn't serve myself, it's near and dear to my heart. And like I told him on the show, Eric, whether you're from a military family, whether you served or not, regardless of your opinion on current politics and current events, the bottom line is these people, there are men and women who served and are serving, the freedoms we get to enjoy, including cards and the hobby, is partly related to that. So regardless of feelings, we need to not forget those people, take care of them like they took care of us as well, and still do. And I told Tim on the show, we have Memorial Day and Veterans Day, and it's kind of like 2 days a year to kind of honor them and think about them. But truth be told, this as well as anyone, that's a 365-day, 24/7 service. That's not 2 days. So, I try to think about them on the daily. I'm going back to being a person of faith. I say my prayers every night before I go to sleep. And in those prayers, I do mention, watch over military across the world and here as well.
Hey, John, let me ask you this. You said the Northeast. So, have you ever make it up to Toronto for the Toronto Sports Card Expo?
I haven't. I know about it. I've been to Toronto. I'll admit it's been many years since I've been there, but it's something I've thought about. So, this year's already happened. If I'm not, it's once a year, right?
No, it's twice a year. So they have a show in May. I believe this year it's May 4th, 5th, and 6th. But what I was getting at was they have a show in November, too, and it's usually right around Veterans Day. Up there, they call it Remembrance Day.
Yeah.
What I wanted to get to was just it's such a beautiful sign and show of respect that the Canadians do for their men and women of service. Each one of them wears a poppy, and on that weekend when that show is going on, it's such a beautiful thing to see just how they respect their military. Everybody's got a poppy on, and everybody has a story to share, and they're all buying hockey cards, and it's just wonderful to watch.
Yeah, that's great. Maybe some here we probably should take a page, out of their book, as they say.
Yeah.
Well, Eric, I can't tell you, this has been a real treat. I appreciate your time. I know you said like on the weekends you're decompressing. And here you are, 30, 40 minutes with me talking about. But we did talk about some other things besides cards, which is nice as well, like you said. So again, I want to thank you. This is a big thrill for me. It's funny. I do the show. I asked my son, have you listened to the show at all? I said, nah. He's 19. He's old. I'm like, yeah, have you listened to the show? No. He goes, but I still listen to Eric and Fat Pack. So my son's a bigger fan of you than his own dad. That's another feather in the Eric Norton cap. But he may listen to this show since you're on it. So that's that's why I had to bring you on. What's that?
Maybe it'll spark the interest for him and get him to listen to another show.
Yeah, well, that's why I had to resort to those tactics at this point. So
that's funny.
So, but again, Eric, thank you. I hope this isn't, we can do it again sometime. I can't thank you enough.
Yeah, and anytime, man. Anytime you need some help or need a guest and need a spot to fill, I'm happy to do it.
Well, that means the world to me. I appreciate that.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
For over 25 years, Newman Sports Cards has set the standard in customer service in the sports card industry, including same-day shipping. They've added supplies and some wax products to their already great arsenal of rookie cards, game-used cards, autos, and graded cards. Check their fully searchable website out by Googling Newman Sports Cards. It's the first thing that comes up. Click on that link. Or follow them on the social medias at Newman_sportscards at Instagram or at Twitter at Nooms Sports Cards. Or give them a call or text at 315-491-0239. It's time for From the Box Seat. All right, we're going to get to the Super Bowl stuff, but some other sports news first. Not a lot in baseball. A.J. Pollock signed with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Still nothing on Machado and Harper at the time of this recording. Harper's been rumored to the Phillies, but that's kind of been in the last week to 10 days. That's ramped up. He is going to meet with the Padres. And I think what's going on here, in my honest opinion, I think Machado wants Harper money. He's not getting it. Harper wants probably bigger offers, and maybe he's not getting it. I think Harper winds up at the Phillies, and with Machado, I honestly don't know. So that's anyone's guess, if you ask me. But you never know what's going on behind closed doors. It'll be interesting to see when this smoke finally clears what jersey these guys will be wearing in 2019. Huge trade in the NBA. Truthfully, it's a trade of disgruntled players with Kristaps Porzingis going from the New York Knicks. He's bringing his injured self and disgruntled self. Joining him are Courtney Lee and Tim Hardaway Jr. Headed back to the Knicks is another disgruntled player, so I'm going to just voice his displeasure with his situation. That's Dennis Smith Jr. Also in the deal going to the Knicks will be Wesley Matthews and DeAndre Jordan. Those are buyout candidates. I don't know if they'll ever actually suit up for the Knicks. They have expiring contracts that can come off the books and probably why they're in the trade. And also Trey Burke, who's averaging almost 12 points this year as well. But I think the key parts of this trade for the Knicks is they're also getting 2 future first-round picks. So Dallas giving up basically 2 future first-round picks in the deal. That will be key for the Knicks, what those turn into. On the other side for Dallas is the health of Porzingis, mental and physical. First off, physical, hurt his knee. He said they've been already starting to test that out. He's been dunking in practice, shooting in practice, and maybe close to returning. but he's kind of a moody type of player, so it'll be interesting to see if the change of scenery does him good. He's joining kind of a dynamic team with leukemia. We'll see how that all comes into play. You got to remember, I know he's been hurt for almost a year, but Kristoff was kind of the man once Carmelo left New York, and now he's going to a team where he's not going to be the man, and how that dynamic works will be interesting to see. All right, Super Bowl 53 on Sunday, New England Patriots versus the Los Angeles Rams. And saying the Patriots in the Super Bowl as a Steeler fan, that hurts me right in the solar plexus. But it is what it is. You got Belichick, a great coach, versus Sean McVay, a very good coach. This is Belichick's era he shines in, the postseason. This is a guy that continually outcoaches his opposing staff. And this is another situation where on paper it looks like that very well may be the case again. But Sean McVay is I don't even want to say up and coming. I think he's already there. He's an excellent coach. Young, but make no mistake about it, he knows what he's doing. He's taken that team places that Jeff Fisher couldn't with very similar players. So he knows what he's doing. He'll be prepared. He'll have them ready to play. If you watched that Rams-Saints game, you probably figured out or saw that Todd Gurley was on the sideline for a good percentage of that game. Not due to injury, but due to some poor play. A fumble earlier in the game and couldn't get things going. And McVay went with C.J. Anderson. Frankly, I was surprised by that. I don't know what that does to Todd Gurley, an MVP candidate's psyche, that he was benched in favor of basically an aging veteran. I mean, the Rams won the game, so you can't criticize McVay's decision there. But I just wonder about the long-term repercussions of a move such as that. What I see Belichick doing, we all know he's famous for neutralizing or taking out your strength and having someone else beat him. What I think he's going to do, Belichick knows, regardless of what happened last week, Todd Gurley's probably the best player on the offensive side of the ball for the Rams, and he's probably going to take him out and make him a non-factor. So now the onus is on Jared Goff in a situation he's never been in before as a Super Bowl quarterback, something his counterpart, Tom Brady, is ultra familiar with. So it's an interesting dynamic to see a first-time Super Bowl quarterback, young. He's had his moments too. He's had his struggles as well. This year was much better under the tutelage of McVay. But now, can he carry a team with maybe a Todd Gurley not being the factor he normally would be? Can Jared Goff put this team on his shoulders against a Patriots team that's obviously very good, has a great coaching staff? That's the X factor there. On the defensive side of the ball, the X factor is going to be Aaron Donald. To me, for the Rams to have any chance of winning this game, Aaron Donald and the rest of that defense are going to have to pressure Brady. Get him off his mark. Get him throwing balls earlier than he likes, disrupting the timing, and rattling Brady, which obviously doesn't happen very often and is easier said than done. But to me, if Aaron Donald and that defense can't get to Brady or get his timing off, I don't see how the Rams win this game. On the other side of the ball, you got Tom Brady. This is just old hat to him. He doesn't make any plans this time of year because he knows he's probably still going to be playing football. And here he is again. Regardless of whether you think he's the greatest quarterback ever, believe it or not, I don't. I think he's one of the greats, but maybe not the greatest ever. But you know what? He has hardware to prove he probably is. He's very comfortable in these situations. So how much time he has will be the factor on what kind of game he has. When you look at Gronkowski, I think you see a fading player. He isn't as mobile as he once was. Still a weapon, still a threat, but I think the safeties and corners match up well for Gronk. So I think part of the Patriots' game plan is going to be heavy run with Sony Michel, and I think you're going to have to see one of those other receivers step up. I think Gronk is going to be kind of neutralized coming back the other way, just like I think the Patriots will neutralize Gurley. So it's going to be one of these other receivers and Sony Michel that might be the X factor on the Patriots side of the ball when it comes to offense. I know he's been down a while, but I think the absence of Cooper Kupp is going to obviously hurt the Rams. I think they'd have more of a chance in this game had he been on the field. So I guess you'd be listening to what I'm saying, and it does pain me to say, being a huge Steeler fan, but I'm talking here with my head, not with my heart. I think the Patriots come out ahead on this. I'm going to go with a score of 27-17 Patriots. 27 Patriots, 17 Rams. I think the game's close throughout, and I think at the end the Patriots score a late touchdown, hold on, and hoist the Lombardi. And I love being right, and here's a situation where I hope I'm wrong. No offense to Patriots fans. Check out our supporter, Break Stuff Market, your new innovative and global marketplace for trading cards, stickers, and sports memorabilia. They have some of the lowest fees on the market at only 4%. All their transactions are secure via PayPal and Stripe. It's easy to set up from any device, and they have some of the highest community and security standards to avoid being scammed. Don't wait. Join Break Stuff Market now. Go to https://breakstuff.market. All right, that does it for another episode of the Sports Card Nation podcast. Before we go, I just want to say a few things in closing. Again, if you're in those affected areas affected by the cold and winter conditions, be safe. Do the little things. Help out your fellow neighbor. Maybe a warm meal. Shoveling so they can get out and get some provisions and that sort of thing. Think about all the emergency responders, firemen, county and state workers, policemen, EMTs, paramedics that still have to work in those conditions. You may get told to stay home. Don't worry about work. But those type of folks don't get that luxury. They're on the front lines when things like this happen. So, think about them. If you can do something for them, help them out as well. That's what it's all about. We talked a little bit about faith on the show, and I don't want to get overly religious, but regardless of what you believe in, respect everybody, be good to everybody, do good things for people, help your fellow man out. It feels good. It's the right thing to do. Little programming note about episode 12 next Friday. I'm pleased to announce Drew Herndon from Let Me Get That Potograph, another great podcast of the hobby that I definitely listen to, and I urge you to do as well. He's going to join me on the show. We're going to piggyback a little bit on talking about this NFL rookie class. I know I spoke to him via message, and he agrees with me that it's the greatest classes ever. We'll bring him on. We'll talk about what he agrees with. Maybe if he doesn't agree with a few things I said, we'll debate those type of things and talk about other things going on in the hobby. Drew's very knowledgeable, got his finger on the pulse, and I'm happy to have him on. So that's episode 12 next Friday. Have a business or event you'd like to promote or highlight? Become a show sponsor. For a very affordable cost, we can highlight your company or business, either on the podcast or on our website or both. So whether you're a dealer, a breaker, or any other business, we really would love to work with you. Contact us at any of our social medias or email us at sportscardnationpc@gmail.com. That's sportscardnationpc, all one big word, at gmail.com. We look forward to working with you.
You've been listening to the Sports Card Nation podcast. Join host John Newman next week as he gives you another jam-packed episode of all things related to the sports card hobby. And a little extra fun, too. Don't forget to check out the show on Instagram at Sports Card Nation Podcast.